Tuesday. It's going to be a nice sunny Tuesday. A little chillier than yesterday, about 15 degrees less. Currently 54 degrees, high of around 63. And we have a waxing gibbous moon. So we're moving in towards the full moon here. And we've been in the study of Colossians, and we are in Colossians chapter 3, but going into it in chapter 2, he's kind of drawn up the battle lines. We've got the demonic and his forces, those elemental spirits, right? So those are the base, the elementary, or the base spirits that work for the enemy, and they're the ones like uh, of the world, and they're the ones just slinging those little fiery darts at us all day long. They're getting in the way of everything. There's powers, rulers, and authorities, and then there's Satan himself. Okay, but Jesus, he is the head of all rule and authority, both of the demonic, but also of the angelic, of the church, and of the redeemed tribulation Jews. That'll be the three armies of heaven. And so um, Christ, right? He is the one who knits together the armies of heaven. Okay, he's the one who knits together the armies of heaven, and um, he in his conquering over death, right? In his um, vanquishing of death on the cross, and of Satan on the cross, um, defeated all these um, demonic influence, right? That targets sensual mind, because we're born again into a new life, a new heart, of do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? And that's um, what wins the spiritual battle, right? That's what wins the spiritual battle. And then so in chapter 3, he kind of gives us the ID card, right? How do we know someone is a Christian, or we're Christian, or we're saved? It's because we've been raised with Christ, right? So then we focus on things above. We set our minds on the things that are above, right? We put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you, right? Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. Now, he says, stern warning here in chapter 3, verse 6, on the account of these, the wrath of God is coming, on the account of these things that are of the world, right? He's going to come, and when he comes back, the world will change. And then after he takes his throne for 1,000 years, this world will pass away, right? This world will pass away. That's what the scriptures say. And so, and in these, you two once walked, right? I walked in this. I was once a child of disobedience. So was everybody else who is now a Christian. And then so we put away. He says, but now you must put them all away, right? All those things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth, right? So that's the ID card. That's what we do. That's how we spot a Christian. We are putting these things away, right? And in doing that, we give no room for those elemental spirits to cling on to, right? No, for those little guys that are just throwing them fiery darts all day long at us. When we quell those things in us, we start to put those things away, right? We put those things away, and we give them nothing to cling on to. So that's the ID card of the Christian. We're putting those things away. We're focused on things above, right? Focused on things above. Then he says, and having put on the new self, right? Now, David, Psalm 51, restore a new heart within me, right? Restore a new heart within me. We put on that new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of the Creator, right? And so, what is that image of the Creator? Well, he's sinless, right? He's sinless. Hey, thank you, Alberto Caballero. Blessings to you as well. Um, and so that is the image that we look for. We look to attain, and that's through the Word. We only learn about His image through the Word, and in that is how we protect our hearts, right? And that is where that knowledge comes from after the image of the Creator. Now, here, there is not Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. See, everybody who is born again has Christ, right? And everybody, every tribe, nation, color, does not matter. The church is now there are uh, different ethnicities and different skin complexions. God made them. We cannot deny them in the church. However, there's just one body, right? Only one. And Christ is in all. Then he says, here's the spiritual, here it is, right? Spiritual warfare for dummies, right? Put on, okay? Put on then. So we can pick it up. Take make that choice. Put on as God's chosen ones. Now, not everybody can have that choice. It's only God's chosen ones, right? Only God's chosen ones can actually put on, right? Then holy and beloved, compassionate hearts. So the chosen ones are holy, set apart, and beloved by God the Father. So what we're putting on, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. All things that we cannot do without Christ in us. Right now, yeah, we are still going to get angry. Yeah, we are going to be uh, uh, uncompassionate. Right? We won't have that pity, and pity in a good way, not pity in a like a stepping on somebody, putting them down type way, but a pity in an elevating, lifting up type way. Um, we won't have that compassion or kindness, humility. Sometimes we do get kind of big for our britches, so to speak. Um, Meekness, right? Sometimes we don't aren't able to take in and be able to absorb things from others, and patience, bearing with one another. And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. Okay? Are we quick to forgive? I don't know. So I oh let me finish. Forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. So you also must forgive. Listen, you guys, uh, through this whole septic thing, and just the lessons I've gotten at work, um, in the last week, right? There are still good people out there. There, listen, and you never know who's a believer and who's not. Um, but you can kind of tell, right? I guess you don't necessarily know for sure, but when talking to somebody, what their ID card is, by how they talk, what they say, what things they're focused on, what things matter to them, right? What things matter to them. And now it's one thing to say I'm a Christian, but it's another thing to live I'm a Christian, right? And so, um, yeah, the experience I had with the guy doing my septic system, he's definitely a believer, definitely a believer. Because I mean, he could have, if it's not the business you're in, and I learned a lot about this business through this whole thing. I mean, he could have wiped the floor with me, y'all. He could have, but he didn't, right? He didn't. He had compassion, right? Humility, kindness, right? He wasn't concerned about every getting every penny out of me. He was concerned about making sure I had a good operational septic system that was safe, working. It was clean for my neighbors, right? Just like all the things, all the things. Um, and so So those are that's the ID card and how you spot them. And I'm telling you, through this whole thing, my armor was chinked, right? My armor was chinked. It did, if you don't ever, um, if your armor is always, sparkling and there's no dents, and there, you don't have to, wax it, right, to make it shiny again. It's never been used. It's never been good, right? That armor has to be, it does no good if it's not used, right? And so, I did some growing through this thing. Okay. And, you know, uh, and forgiving as the Lord has forgiven you, like at work, right? At work, here's another one. Here's another one. So, um, not having a compassionate heart, and humility, meekness, and patience, man, and patience. So, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and the having all the responsibility, but really very little authority to do it, to carry it out. And um, it's difficult. And, I was, I lost kindness or some patience with, uh, and compassion for, lady who is on the team, and I guess shared authority, with a lot less responsibility, at least as I see it. But I guess that's not really the case. And going through some health things, and come to find out, she's got cancer. She's got leukemia. And that really struck me, made me, just reevaluate, like, where am I on this thing, man? Like, you know, yeah, I can do a little more. Like, but why is it piercing me in that, right? Doesn't make sense. Why is it piercing me in that? So that's that. I, but my armor was chinked, right? And that gives me that, shows me where I'm weak, right? And shows me where I need to watch, because that's where the enemy can get me. Those are those areas where, if I'm not mindful, right, in that, if I don't put on, uh, compassion, right, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, those other things come out, right? Anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth, all those things that we're supposed to be putting away. I and that's that fine line where those, those base spirits, those elemental spirits, those, and that the rulers and authorities and the principalities target. We've got to be on point with that. We just have to be on point with that. And when we recognize it, come to repentance, right? When we recognize it, come to repentance. Then he goes on to say, um, above all things, right? Above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, right? I wasn't loving. I wasn't loving. Um, and then he says, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. And I definitely didn't have no peace, right? You know, the, the stressful trial, the stressful project I got going on, right? It was beating me down, losing sleep over it. My peace, right? My peace, my praise was off, my priest was off, my peace was off. Let Christ rule in your heart, to which indeed you were called in one body. Here it is, and be thankful. My thanks was off. I wasn't thankful that, you know, uh, I was able to find a guy that could do my septic system. You know, that's that that's a work of God. Thankful that the guy's a Christian. I wasn't thankful that, he didn't rake me under the coals when he could have. I wasn't thankful that, you know for all the problems that came up, that he was prepared and had the equipment to do these things. Like, I wasn't. Instead, I was complaining of how much is this going to cost me? How much more? How much more? Right? My thankful heart. I didn't have a thankful heart. Right? Didn't have a thankful heart. And the same thing with the lady at work. I should have been thankful she was even there at all. Right? But I didn't have a thankful heart. Right? Then he says, and this is it right here. Right? And we'll end here. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. 16a. Colossians 3:16a. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Okay? That is the warfare number one thing, letting the word dwell in you richly. You want to combat Satan. You want to um, have the armor. You want to be able to rebuke. You want to rebuke a demon. You want to rebuke, and be careful with that stuff, man. But you want to do that. How you do it? How you cast out a demon is with the light, with the truth, with the word, right? With the word, with a thankful heart, with peace of Christ in your heart ruling. There's no room for him to cling on to. You resist the enemy, he will flee. How? By letting the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Letting the word of Christ dwell in you richly. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day.